Hello, and welcome to an exciting edition of SDL and OpenGL game development. My name is Nate Nestler, as always, and this is Hyperactive Studios. So, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be, well, you play games, and you've always wanted to, say, have a joystick interact with it, or you want to set up your application where you have keyboard and mouse interactions in order to drive your game, or say not even a game, but some other application, and you want to use it with either a 2D application or a 3D application. And you want to make it to where your program runs on everything, more or less. You want it to run on a Mac, on the Windows, on the Linux, and all these different things. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to make an application. In this case, we're going to be doing OpenGL with SDL, so that way it's 3D, which is really great, and it's really important with these new 3D screens that are coming out and everything, so that we're compatible with them. And then we're going to be doing this programming with CodeBlocks here as our editor, and it'll let us sit there and compile it on Windows, Linux, and the Mac. And this is great, so that way we only write one application, but then it runs on everything thereafter. And that's ideal, and that's what we'll be going for. So with that, let's have a look at what it is that we need to do in order to get set up here on Windows. And then I'll show you how to do it on Linux, and then we'll look at what we need to do in order to make this code actually run and do what it is that we need to do. Alright, so first off, we need to download CodeBlocks so that we can get set up, and then we can get our our game controllers, our mouse, our keyboards. We have sound effects, so we can load images, so that we can do, network game programming. Even with this is amazing. It just does all kinds of stuff, and it works cross-platform compatible. It even does timers and threads, but they're not so cross-platform on timers and threads. And the reason why is because each operating system has its own way of doing it. So the way in which threads work in Linux is really different than the way they work in Windows, and so it tries to you have to kind of code around the different platforms for that reason. So you are going to get different functionality dealing with that. Okay, so first off, you need to download CodeBlocks from codeblocks.org. So that's www.codeblocks.org, and then you need to go to the download section. And currently they're at 10.05, but you may have a newer version later. That's fine. And then we're going to be looking for a binary release. This means binary means executable, so this means a program here that's ready just to be installed. Now there's two different ones here. You just have setup here, and then you have the MingW setup. And we want the MingW setup. And the reason why we want the MingW setup, because this is essentially GCC Linux programming, basically Linux environment put into the Windows system here. So this will allow us to do everything from like shell commands to you name it. And that's really important. And I'll tell you why. Basically, with this allows us to have one project, and since we'll be using the same system for compiling it, we can compile on Linux just as easily as we compile on Windows. And in this way, we don't have to jump through as many hoops or problems in order to make that happen. So that's very important and is vital for what we're doing. Okay, so with that said, let's look at go ahead and doing this and getting this going here. So all you do is you're going to come over here, and you can either do Burley OS or SourceForge.net. Who knows, it might be something different when you're downloading it. They may add different servers or whatever. Doesn't matter. Just download the MingW setup here, .exe for CodeBlocks. If you're on Linux, well, you'll go over the Linux video, but you can download one of these here. And it's great. Ubuntu has CodeBlocks already set up for it, and so I'll show you how to do that. I also have it for Fedora, SUSE, and Mandriva. Mandriva used to be the old Mandrake, for those who are familiar with Mandrake, and that's a really awesome distribution of Linux too. It's excellent. They did a name change and didn't really tell anybody they did a name change, and then a bunch of people didn't know about them. So if you're familiar with Mandrake, it's now called Mandriva, and it's even more crazy awesome than it was back when. So because they actually bought two other companies and took their tools and integrated it into their system, so it's like really crazy awesome now. But anyways, also have the Mac OS here too. So this is awesome. This is great. So this way we can sit there and develop in one go and cross multiple platforms, and we don't have to create umpteen different projects. So this makes it so nice and easy to keep up. If you've done other cross-platform development and you're like, well, I like using Visual Studio, okay, great, but then you're going to have to switch to another code editor like CodeBlocks or something like that when you get to Linux, and then you may have to have and then if you didn't use another one there, maybe you have a different one for the Mac. Okay, so that means you have to reset up your project for each one and then have to deal with whatever specifications there are for each particular compiler, because each one's a little different on their setup, and so maybe some of the same code won't work properly on this other editor like it does on CodeBlocks or on XYZ editor over here. So in order just to avoid all those crazy headaches, what we're going to do is just use one editor that goes across all of them, and this editor is really good. It's actually it's just awesome. So it has code completion, has special specifications for SDL and OpenGL, which just makes life so much easier. I can't even begin to go into it, and it's really, really nice, honestly. Okay, so go ahead and download your code blocks here. Like for instance, I don't know, this one's coming from Germany. Cool. And download one of these here, and it pops up, and then you can save it and download that to your computer. Now I've already downloaded and saved this, so you go ahead and do that. And let me grab this from my drive here. Let's see. Probably have it in the downloads section would be my guess. That or I put in programming. I don't know. It's one of the two. And my gosh, do I have a lot of stuff. Alrighty, but you'll have code blocks in here, and the another thing that's really nice about this is I haven't found like a whole lot of changes between the updates for what you have to really change your code around, or the interface doesn't suddenly magically massively change so that you're not going, oh my gosh, what do I need to suddenly have to redo all my stuff here. No, it's pretty much straightforward and stays easy to maintain here over a longer period of time. I found that to be certainly a nice aspect of it. Okay, yeah, so I already had code blocks here. And I actually already have code blocks installed, but I'm going to go through the installation process with you and show you how to do it. Okay, next. Alright, so right here it just tells you a bunch of stuff about it. You'll need to agree to the license agreement, which is no big deal because it's a Juno open source free software license agreement. Basically, if you develop the editor, you're going to have to give those developments back to the community, but that's it. Anything you program with the programming compiler is your own. You own it, so don't worry about it. Right here, because custom, you actually want to say full here, all plugins, tools, just everything. Now the reason why you want to do that, and let me point this out, besides the fact that you get all these wonderful extra tools here, which are quite nice, and those contribution plugins are definitely a lifesaver, no doubt about it. And then we get core plugins and all this stuff here, which is nice. But there's a particular thing that we're most interested in, besides just what we're looking at here. They also have special setup for doing let's see here if I can't show it. They have a special setup for like graphics programming. Yes, GLSL slang, NVIDIA CG, Ogre programming. Oh, look at embedded development. Yes, even have embedded development programming. And then shells like diff tool, makefile, bash script, DOS batch files, all very useful. Diff in particular, because then you can sit there and do team-based programming with that, and then you can find the difference between your code and what's up on the server from what you made changes from, or what someone might have posted up since the last time you downloaded code. So that's really nice too. They even have stuff for MATLAB and SQL and all this other stuff, and they also have it set up for beyond that. And then they even have XML, HTML, CSS, latex. I mean, just, man, a lot of awesome stuff on here. Lua, Python, Perl, Lisp, PostScript, Ruby, VB, Game Monkey. I haven't even heard of that one, but yeah, they got that too. A lot of really great stuff here, and then all kinds of compilers too. Besides that, they also got special setup, which I'm not seeing here, but it's there, for SDL and also for OpenGL, and for additional things above and beyond that. So the point about that is that it makes it really easy to do our SDL and OpenGL programming because it's already set up to do it. And that's very different than, say, if you're using Visual Studio, they're not going to be set up for doing that. And you'll have to go through a lot of extra hoops in order to get your stuff set up. And this is out of the box ready to do SDL and OpenGL. So for doing cross-platform programming with OpenGL and SDL or any of these other things, the CodeBlocks is already set up for it, even set up with certain game engines right out of the box, like Ogre for instance, but just more than that, lots of other ones too. You'll see what I'm talking about. Even CG shader language, along with the GLSL. And you can sit here and program easily for whatever you're trying to do, and it'll already know code completion for it, code auto completion, and just a whole bunch of stuff already. It'll even set it up for you for the environment. I mean, it just makes life so much easier. But yeah, say next, say where you want to install it, and then you're going to click install. I'm not going to because I've already installed it, but that's what you want to do, and that will install this whole application. Okay, now once the application is installed, you're going to, and you can choose where you want to put it. In this case, I put it on the C drive. You could have put it on a different drive if you have it, or different location. That's fine. It doesn't matter. But you do need to put it on the computer somewhere. Not quite ready to launch CodeBlocks yet. If it auto launches, you can just close it out. That's fine. The next thing we need to do, besides CodeBlocks, we're going to need SDL. And we're going to need SDL so that we can actually do our event programming. So that way we can have our Windows interface on all these different OSs. As you can see, it supports tons of different ones. Linux, Windows, Windows CE, BEOS, Mac OS, Mac OS 10, FreeBSD, NetBSD, OpenBSD, BSD/OS, Solaris, IRIX, and QNX. Just a ton of them here, and it even supports for the Amiga OS, Dreamcast, Atari, AIX, OSF True 64, RISC OS, Symbian OS, and OS2, but these are not officially supported. But still, I mean, there you go. And then it's written with umpteen different language compatibilities. I mean, you name it. It's awesome. So it gives you all kinds of stuff. It even gives you control over the CD-ROM player. You can actually control the CD-ROM player and make it open or close or play the CD-ROM or something like that. Stream music off of the CD-ROM, etc. You can do that also with OpenCL. So it's very cool, very powerful, and allows for a tremendous amount of capabilities here. So we need to download this so that we can do what we need with it. Alright, so real simply, and you're going to go to www.liblibsdl.org. Again, that is www.liblsdl.org. Alright, from there we're going to click on underneath download SDL 1.2. Now they're actually working on 1.3, but we just need 1.2 for now. 1.3 will be awesome once it's released. And we can make use of this 1.2.14 is the latest one at this time. It may be up to 1.3 when you download it. Great, that'll be great when you have that access to that. But for now, that's what we're doing. Okay, so we're going to need the runtime libraries. I know there's, and then we'll also want, besides the runtime libraries here, we're also going to want development libraries here under the SDL, and we're going to want SDL-devel over here 1.2.14-mingw32.tar.gz. Now you may recognize that mingw there. Now remember, that's what we downloaded for CodeBlocks. This keeps us all on that same Linux based compiler system with GCC and whatnot. So that makes it to where we can sit there and do our development on Linux in the same environment that we do for on Windows, the same environment as we do it on Linux as what we can do on the Mac. And so that way we can just code it once and compile it on all 3 platforms and not have to worry about a whole bunch of headaches in trying to get things to work between the different setups here. If we want, we can even do the compiling as a static build, which we'll discuss later on in the series here. And that prevents you from having to have an installer, and basically someone can just unzip the application and it runs. So that's really simple, that's really clean, it's really nice, and works really works. It makes life easy and carefree, more or less. So with that, let's have a look at and I mean, don't get me wrong, installers are better, but they're very expensive. So if you have the money for it, great. But if you don't have the money, for the installers, then the static build is the way to go. Because some of the installers can get to be over $10,000, so they get expensive. They are very useful though, and they're awesome, especially cross-platform compatible installers where it installs on Linux, Windows, or Mac. They can get to be quite costly. They're definitely worth it. It's just yeah. Anyways, if you're on a budget, static builds is great, and that way you can still deploy your application. SDL-1.2.14 here. You're going to need to download this one. And you're going to download it to some place that's going to make sense for you. So by all means, keep things straightforward and in my case, I have a programming folder for storing this kind of stuff here, and I've already downloaded this particular download. See, it's right there in my downloads. But save it to download it, and then you're also going to want this one right here. Now, I notice it says tar here, and you're probably going, well, what on earth? Well, that has to deal with the Linux format for zipped format. There's ones for GZ here is particular. There's BZ2 and there's 7Z zip too. Now 7Z zip works on all platforms. It's cross-platform, and it's an incredibly great zip tool. And we're going to download that and install that into our Windows too. And the reason is it'll let you unzip this tar along and this .gzs and all these other ones, including .zip and .rar and .bz2 and everything else in it, and along with 7z-zip, and it tightens everything down into a very compressed format. And it's excellent. It's free. It's super fast. It's nothing but good stuff to say about it. It's really, really good. So download this one too. So you're going to have your SDL develop 1.2.14-mingw32.tar.gz and say save. In my case, I've already downloaded this one. Okay, so with that said, we need to download our 7-zip too. So just hit up Google, because I think it's 7zip or whatever .org, but I'm not totally sure. Yeah, there's a dash there. See, that's something I wouldn't remember. All right, so it is www.7-zip.org right there, and it actually integrates with your with your Windows Explorer, your window manager, and then you can just right-click on any file, unzip it, or zip it up, or whatever you want to do. So it's super easy to use. If you're going from a 32-bit computer, then you're going to want to download the exe. Now, if you're working with a 64-bit computer, then you're going to need to download the .msi. Either one will execute and install. However, be aware, 32-bit for 32-bit computers and 64-bit for 64-bit computers is best. They also have licenses. This also works on Linux and on the Mac. So the great thing about this is no matter what OS you're working with, this works on everything. So you're covered. I don't care if it's Unix, Linux, Windows, or well, Mac is Unix. So if you didn't know, it's a FreeBSD license of Unix. Actually, is what OS 10 is. But this is going to allow you to unzip your files. So very cool. Download what you need and install it. And all you do is say download here like this. I think this is a 32-bit version. And then I'm just going to save it like so. I'm going to pop back up here, and I'm going to drop into my programming folder again, because this is where I'm doing all my programming stuff. I could put it in a download folder, but I don't know. Alright, so say I download it, but I've already downloaded it and it's already installed. And then all I'd have to do from this point on over here would be to come over here and install it wherever it is. But yeah, you just install that to your computer. It's really simple. It's just nothing more than a double click like this, run. It's going to ask where to install it. I've already installed it here. It's going to just pretty much pop it in. Alright, so once it's installed, won't take you very long at all. Just be a matter of like a minute or less. It goes pretty quick. Then you can come in here, and it's nice for a couple of things. I can just double click and see what the contents are. In that case, it's just a single file. I might want that to be in a folder so I don't get mixed up with other things. And then we also have our SDL tar here that we're looking at from before. And here's the gzipped one here in its original state. Now, the cool thing about this, if I right click on this, check it out, you have 7-zip here. And I can even say open archive if I like and see what's inside. And in this case, I know it's just going to end up being this file right here, meanw32.tar, which is exactly what I've done here when I unzipped it. So if I right click on this and I say 7-zip here, I say extract here, it's going to wipe over the file I've already extracted, of course, because I've already done this. And but you haven't, so let's create the file. And bam, here's our .tar file. We'll need to extract it one more time, and I'll show you what the contents are inside of this thing. So open archive, and we see that we get a folder here, and it is SDL as you would expect it, the full folder name. So if I right click on this, no point in me extracting to this here because I already have a folder with a name on it, and so I don't want to have dive through two different folders. That's ridiculous. So just extract here, and then it's going to unzip it with all the files in there. And bada bing, there we are. In this case, with this file here, I don't like the idea of having to have that in a separate folder so much, buried within this one here. So, of course, I've already unzipped it like that. But again, all you do on this one, right click, 7-zip here, and say extract here would put the files like that. So that's kind of a mess, hard to keep the hunt down. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to right click on this, and in this case I'm going to say extract to SDL-1.2.14-Win32. And of course, if you have a newer version, then it'll have a different name for it, but otherwise that's what it'll be. Alright, so there we go. We have a folder, and we now have our SDL.dll. Okay, cool. So what is this DLL about? Well, quite simply, we need to install this into the system folder so that Windows has access to it. Otherwise, it won't know about SDL and it won't work, quite frankly. So how do we do that? So we need to do a hand install. Yeah, it kind of sucks, sorry, but that's the way it is. A lot of programming tools are this way, where they don't make life easy for you. You just kind of get used to it. Alrighty. So we got two folders here. We got System and System32. We need to put it in both, actually. So let's see here. I'm just gonna and we also need to put it into SysWow64 too while we're at it. So I'm gonna drag, and this becomes a plus sign here. Very cool. And I'm gonna drag and drop this over to the System one. Okay. In this case, I've already done that, but it's going to copy over it. I'm also going to drag it into my System32, which I've already done that too, and it's copied it. And you also need to drag it into your SysWow64 if you're on a 64-bit system. And that's also important. So you've got three folders you need to drag that into, okay? Okay, so that's how you hand install that file. Now, very good. Alrighty, so we still have a little bit more to do. And yeah, we're not out of the woods yet. So basically, we need to do a few things here. And this might throw you a bit, and understandably, really. Once I go into this file here, see a lib here, which is fine. But we'll see underneath the include. Now yours are not going to have all these files out here. Now I had to do this for CodeBlocks. Non-standard, don't know why, but whatever, it freaked out about not being able to find the files inside of include because it was inside the SDL folder, even though this SDL folder is standard. So I don't know why, but they have it set up where it's non-standard. Maybe the standard back when wasn't with the SDL folder like that inside of the include, and they've never updated it since, I guess, maybe? I don't know. Who knows? But what you need to do is come in here to the SDL folder, I'm guessing at that point, right? So select all these files here, and you're just going to drag and drop, copy them into the include folder, like so. And this lets us bypass that problem I was just talking about with the SDL for code blocks, okay? And in my case, I've already done that for all of these, so I don't need to do it again, but there we go. And so that gives us all our files out here so that code blocks doesn't freak out. The great thing about this, if you want to, you could add the SDL folder with your project for your application, and you can link it directly in code blocks. And then, so it doesn't matter when you deploy it if they have it SDL installed or not, because it'll just be statically linked right there in the actual folder with your application, and so it'll just find it right away. And this will make getting your application run on different computers much easier and much cleaner across many different machines. So less problems, basically, is what I'm saying. Okay, and you're probably not used to doing some of this stuff if you've done a lot of programming because you haven't been using external libraries, more likely than not, which is the norm. But we're going to use lots of external libraries. Pretty much everything is external. We're completely bypassing Windows altogether. And in doing so, we gain independence from Windows, and we can more easily code a cross-platform compatible program. And so it just makes life so much easier and better, basically. Okay. So let's look at this some more. Let's also add this for our own sanity to the code blocks folder, so when we pull it up, it's always there. And that's nice too. By default, it's not there, so you need to add it, unfortunately. So let's do that real quick. Let's see here. I am gonna go to the program files. In my case, I have to put it under 64-bit. I mean 32-bit here, because CodeBlocks is 32-bit. Now, key thing to note here is that CodeBlocks will actually allow you to compile for 64-bit machines too. So they'll support all kinds of compiling, actually. MingW here. And then you'll see underneath the include, we got different ones here. And we can drop in the SDL here, if we like. So that's cool. So I can go in here to my SDL, I can go to my include, I can grab my SDL folder, and I can drag and drop that directly into, actually I can just grab this whole setup here if I like, like so. And I can drag and drop that directly into my include here for my MingW, like so. And then in this case, of course, it will automatically, you know, I've already done this, as you can see here with the SDL. They already have GL in there, they just didn't have the SDL for whatever reason. Now, also, there's the lib folder here, so don't forget your lib files, that's also important. And they're going to go into our lib folder here, okay? So just drag and drop these files to there. And say yes all. Well, if you, well, of course yours won't already be there, but you know, drag and drop it in there. And now your SDL is also installed directly into your code blocks folders. Okay. Last thing to do here is to launch code blocks. And I'll show you how to create an SDL application. So I just went ahead and launched my CodeBlocks application. It was, well, I've done it so much it just appears here, but otherwise it'll be stored in your CodeBlocks folder here, and just select CodeBlocks like this, and it'll come up. Now your interface is probably not as smooth as mine right now. It's probably like multi-tiered or whatever, and that's because yours are probably like scattered out like this. What you can do though is you can grab these different parts and organize it how you like, and it'll just snap up into place where you want it. And so now you can totally customize your interface however you like. I also took my scripting console and dragged and dropped it up here, and that formed it into this interface here. See how you got your scripting console like this? If you take yours and you bring it up here like so, you can actually have it pop in. If you want, you could do it set up like this, or you could put the scripting console like that so it goes across the whole way, or maybe you just want it under just the management part. You know, it doesn't really matter. It's up to you, right? And that's cool. You know, I don't necessarily care one way or the other how I do mine. You know, maybe I want my management above my scripting console like that, and I'll just move it around, and there we go. So very cool. You can also type in commands here and do whatever you need to in your scripting console, and then you have your workspace here and your different projects and stuff loaded up into here, along with your build logs and all this. All right. So let's go ahead and create a new project. So I'm going to go to File, New, and I'm going to say Project here. It's going to launch it up. Now this is why we said install full everything. All right, check it out. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. We got console applications, we got CodeBlock plugins, we got AVR project, ARM project, we have a D application, we have DirectX project, dynamic link library, empty projects, which is of course always useful, FLTK project, we have a GLFW project. This has to do with OpenGL. Then we have a glut project, which is something you could use in place of SDL, but it's slow, and it's really only used for demo purposes in order to show what's possible with OpenGL or something of that nature. So it's not something you would actually use in a real application. It's something you'd only use if you want to show everyone else some particular technique or something like that. GTK Plus project here, and then we have Irich project, which is a game engine. It's a particular game engine. It runs very fast. Kernel mode driver, Light Feather project, MATLAB project, which is a mathematics program. It's a very good one. Ogre project here, and then OpenGL project, PowerPC project, Qt4 project, and just like GTK, this is also for Linux. GTK Plus typically for GNOME, and it is pronounced GNOME, even though that G is in there. It's silent because it's from Mexico in Spanish. The actual developer is from MIT, and he was from Mexico, so yeah, that's why it's pronounced GNOME. That's because he named it. Yeah. Anyways, Qt4 would be your KDE, for instance, in Linux. SDL project. Oh, look, there's our SDL project. SFML project, STL port application, shared library, Smart Win project, static library, Tricore project, Win32 GUI project, and XW widgets project. So tons and tons of projects that you can use for doing this. Already preset up, ready to go out of the box. Awesome. So select our SDL project because that's what we're going to make. And we're going to say go. I know they have OpenGL, but honestly, this makes life easier if we just choose SDL and then do our OpenGL from there. And I'll show you how to set up your own particular configuration for this. Okay, hit go. And welcome to the new SDL project wizard. And the wizard guides you through the graphics library, blah, blah, blah. Just go ahead and say next. And then we're going to do our project title. And let's say SDL underscore, how about let's do keyboard, how about key mouse for keyboard and mouse. And then it's an OpenGL project too. So we're going to do OpenGL. And then that's the very next project we're going to do in the next video. And I'm going to show you how to set up the project so it'll compile and work and everything in the next video. Alright, so with that, let's go ahead and hit our next button here. And then it's going to want to know where SDL resides. In this case, I have it in e:/programming/SDL. Now, if you're not, I don't know where it is, click on the triple dot button here, and then you can search for it. In my case, I have it on my E drive here. And I also have it directly inside of CodeBlocks if I want to grab it that way too. I nailed it both ways. And I told it, it's just right here, okay? And then, it can find it inside the include library and all that stuff. But this is the main SDL location. And this will make it happy for CodeBlocks. we're going to use the Juno GCC compiler, and that makes us compatible with Linux. Now, I know they do have Visual Studio's C++. You'll notice they also have, and that's 2003, 2005, 2008, Boiler C++ compiler, Digital Mars compiler, all these different ones, right? Juno CC compiler for MS P430. I mean, just, my goodness, they have so many different ones here. And then you can choose what one you want. But for us, for our purposes, we're just going to use Juno GCC compiler because that'll work more than it'll be more than good enough for what we need to do. And it's a very robust, powerful compiler, and we can do a lot of different checking for errors with this thing. It's great. We have two different settings here. We can do debug and release. We want both set up. So this way you have your debug set up where you have where it hunts for more things and stuff like that. When you're trying to find problems, and then you have your release one where it goes out and maybe you're not interested in warnings or something like that on your release build. So you can have two totally different build setups, you know, one you're doing your testing with and one you're doing for your final product launch. So that's really cool. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and click finish with this setup, and it's going to generate my project. And you're probably going, well, I got nothing. It's just a blank screen here for this part. Well, check it out. Over here on the side, if I click down here on the sources and I double click on main, oh, check it out. Here's all the code. And main.cpp is standard on a lot of these compilers, and you do need to have the name main.cpp for your main file. Okay. Now you're probably going, wow. All right, it's already got a code in there for me. It's an already pre-written SDL application. Check it out. All I need to do is go up to my build and run. Now, it's this weird little gear here with a little green arrow. And you're going to click on that, and it's going to compile and build your application. And in this case, it builds this little code block icon. It's just nothing more than an image with SDL. It's totally written all in SDL, and it launched. So cool. When you're done with it, you can just hit close out the button there, and then we can hit the space bar. And you'll notice that it looks just like a Windows window, because it is. It's been done completely underneath the hood, but the same application would launch in Linux too. And all you have to do is go through how to set this up in Linux, because I have a how to do it in Linux video too. And then all you have to do from there is you can now take your same application and launch it on all the different platforms. So this is immensely helpful. It'll make your life so much easier, and it's really great. So this makes porting applications between different platforms super simple, and no longer do you have to have massive headaches. Honestly, I've looked at a bunch of different solutions. This is my favorite one so far that I've come across, and it's really clean. Everything just compiles and works beautifully in Linux, builds the libraries, and you can deploy it for Debian releases, RPMs, TARs, whatever you want to do, any kind of release you want to do like that. And on Windows, you could zip it up and release it as a static build, or if you have an installer program, do it in the installer that way. It doesn't really matter. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. So, very cool. We'll go ahead and finish with this right here. And in the next video, we'll look at how to start doing an OpenGL project in here and making it to where the application will work with OpenGL and not just SDL, and how we can set up our own custom libraries in there for whatever we want to do beyond that, even CG for instance, and make it all execute and work. So with that gets us started with CodeBlocks and SDL for doing our SDL OpenGL programming series here for cross-platform compatible programming for game development or other applications. My name is Nate Nestler, as always, and this is for Hyperactive Studios. Thank you very much.